It's Duke week. Get ready for the Blue Devils. And notice there is no smirk on my face. I am serious. This is a game to be reckoned with and a team to be reckoned with. They're playing some pretty good ball. So Miami has an opportunity to win a major game in the Coastal Division. They only have one loss in the division in the conference. So they are still very much alive. So big game coming up on Saturday. Duke at Miami, talking Canes for the next hour here at the Voice of College Football. And of course, the one who makes it all go for us on a Wednesday night at 7 Eastern time, Cam Underwood, State of the U.
What's up? What's up? What's up? And I'm wearing that very hoodie to support these Detroit Pistons as they return to the court this fine Wednesday afternoon or evening. So yeah, I know I usually wear Miami stuff, but just felt like that. So yeah, this is the Martin plus Pistons crossover event from a couple years ago. So yeah, man, very excited about that. Very excited to talk some Canes, obviously, as well. But I am I'm a Renaissance man. I'm not a fan of only one thing, so I wanted to bring a little extra flavor, un sabor, if you will, to the proceedings as we get started.
Some
Sabor. That's Espanol for flavor.
Boy, that was well. I didn't hear it come out of your mouth the same way as I did the second time. I would have recognized it. Yes, yeah. That was well stated. I don't want to try to repeat it just after you stated that word. It would sound butchered because it would be butchered. But I am curious, who are the 2 or 3 or 4 best Pistons players right now?
Cade Cunningham's Pistons superstar, Cade Cunningham. I was tweeting about him his entire year at Oklahoma State. I just think that he, as a 6'6", 6'7" lead guard, is exactly what we need as a facilitator. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he's a really, really, really good player. So yeah, he's the face of the franchise, as it were. Number 1 overall pick. We won the lottery 2 years ago to get him, which I was manifesting that whole entire. You can go back and look through my Underwood Sports Twitter account. The whole entire season, I'm like, cool. I'm going to watch Pistons superstar or future Pistons superstar Cade Cunningham at Oklahoma State against Kansas, or what, like the whole season, and that came through. So I'm very excited about him. Jaden Ivey, Niall Ivey's son, and she played at Notre Dame, coaches at Notre Dame, was a WNBA player and everything. He was our first round pick this past year. And then I would say for right now, probably Sadiq Bey from Villanova is the 3rd best, but Jalen Duren, who went to Memphis and played 1 year for Penny Hardaway, is this big physical 6'10", 250 pick and roll finisher center project for not necessarily a project, but he's not finished yet. But I'm really excited for when he's able to take some steps forward and everything. So yeah, we have a really good nucleus for the future. But we got to start getting those reps of games and winning and things like that. So there's talent on the team, but we're not going to compete this year. And if we do, then that'll be a huge step.
From sometime in the early 80s up until about mid-2000s, 05, right about the time that the Pistons were amazing and played those back-to-back NBA finals, was kind of my range of NBA fandom, where I was never like your go-to guy for NBA information, but I kept up with the sport. I could hold my own in any conversation. But over the last 15 years, other than LeBron in that 4 years in a row to the finals, where my boy was totally into it. So he took me along for the ride and had to watch all the postseason games with him. Other than that, I've been just kind of on the outside of the NBA scope. So the Pistons they're a factor now.
Well, I mean, we're hopefully building towards being a factor. Probably won't even make the playoffs this year, but young team, bright future and everything. And there's plenty of great players across the association. So now is a great time to dive back in, as LeBron is. I mean, I don't want to say sunsetting, but I mean, he's 37 going on 38. He can't continue that forever. But anyways, we digressed for a few minutes.
And everybody can blame me for that. I was just curious.
And I brought it up because I was wearing the hoodie. So, we're in this together, brother.
You know who's got a bright future possibly is Duke football. They're not bad. They got a new coach, maybe knows what he's doing, Mike Elko. And
former defensive coordinator at Texas A&M, and they have multiple former Miami staffers up there as well. So
like
David Feely, the strength and conditioning coach, what's his name? Jess Simpson, who coached at like Buford, and then he was at Miami, and then he was an assistant with the Atlanta Falcons, the assistant DL coach and everything. Now he's over there. The outside linebackers coach, the Ishmael guy, who was here, he's over there. There might be one other. So like, yeah, there's some familiar names up there in Duke is in Durham. Yeah. As they come down this weekend, but so it's not just Mike Elko, but I know people are going to say, Cam, nobody on the prior Miami staffs is worth a damn. I respectfully disagree. These are professional people. Now I know that it wasn't the best in the world, but again, if you go back and look at the pieces that we wrote and the conversation about Jess Simpson when he came down here, there were NFL teams that would go, when they would go to Atlanta or they would go to like a coaching symposium, Jess Simpson was the one who was presenting about defensive line play, right? So they would like go out of their way and be like, hey, let's go talk to this guy and get his knowledge on that topic because he's the best in the business, right? So, and we wrote about it, we talked about it on here and everything. So you can't all of a sudden then go say, well, he's not here, so now he's trash. The other guy, the guy from Orlando, Ishmael, wasn't that his name? I think so. Anyway, he was only here for a year and everything. I can see where you're like, well, we'll see what he does. And I think he's even coaching corners up there. He's not even coaching outside backers. They feel, he was in multiple places, Temple and here and other places as, S&C. So, and you can tell, by the way that they're playing, like there seems to have been, the S&C program that they're undergoing right now seems to be working for them. Now, am I saying that he's the Cochran dude who was at Alabama, he, is going to set the foundation for a multiple-time national championship program at Duke? No. Is it a step forward from where they were? Absolutely. So as you're watching the game, just think, oh, yeah, there are multiple guys on that sideline who used to be on the other sideline.
Ishmael Aristide?
Ishmael Aristide. There we go. Yes.
Aristide.
Yes.
Yeah, Duke lost all of its conference games last year. They were 0-8, and they weren't close in any of them. They were getting housed every week. I get their horrible metrics confused with Georgia Tech's because they're both coming off just lousy. Georgia Tech was like 13 consecutive ACC losses, 10 consecutive FBS losses.
Yeah.
Duke was somewhere in the same vicinity. But I got to tell you, in my constant prioritizing of games on Saturday, I drifted to the Duke North Carolina game because I wanted to see, we got something going here with about 5 minutes to play.
Yeah.
Duke's driving down the field. They're up by 3. It's inside 2 minutes. They got the ball inside the 10-yard line to ice the game. They can't get it in the end zone. They miss a chip shot field goal. Drake May down the field, touchdown, game winner. And then even after what turned out to be the game winner with like 16 seconds left, Duke actually hit like a 35-yard pass to get them within like 6-7 yards of field goal range, but they couldn't quite get the extra yardage they needed to give it a shot.
Yeah. That was that was a compelling game. It was like, and Duke led for a good part of that game, by the way. So, my picks league, I picked Carolina to win, but then I'm like, this might, because they were up 2 touchdowns at one point, I want to say. Like it was, they came out real fast. I think it was like 21-7 Duke in that game and everything. So, yeah, they're acquitting themselves well. And that just means, that has to be the goal for them this year, is to be competitive in games. And they're not even being competitive. They've won some of these previous games. Now, I know they lost by 3 to Kansas, and Kansas was, undefeated previous at the time. That was an undefeated matchup out in Lawrence and everything. But that was, that was a compelling game too. It wasn't, like the defenses on both sides, left a little bit to be desired because they definitely smashed the over in that game. But, a small step is still a step. And let us not forget that in terms of Miami, and definitely not overlook that in terms of Duke.
I can't believe we've started our show and we're 9 minutes into it and we have yet to talk about the Canes themselves. They actually did play a game last weekend. They were up 20-0. I'm not going to say that they almost blew the game because it never got to that point, but Virginia Tech scores, 3.5 minutes left. If they could have gotten a stop, then they get the ball back.
They had the ball down 20-14.
Okay.
And then Miami got a stop.
Okay.
But then after that, then were able to run it out, but that, I mean, yeah, was it was good to see finally that Miami got out to a fast start. When was the last time you could say 20-0, 17-0? You know, and not even last year's Pittsburgh. And I mean, I know that we got out to a fast start there, and it was a shootout kind of a game. But like, when was the last time that you saw Miami pretty much dominate? Nate 561 point was at the Virginia Tech game, and it was frustrating because it looked like to me the Canes lost all their focus and discipline in the fourth quarter. What can the coaching staff do to stop this? Yeah, it was. The field was tilted one direction, and that was the Miami Hurricanes direction for 3 quarters and a little bit. And then, things fell apart, man. You just, have so many penalties and, just terrible, and you let them back in the game, and 4 for 4 in the red zone is fine. 50% on touchdowns, though, that's not. It has to be better. You have to be getting touchdowns in the red zone 80% of the time or more. So with 4 red zone trips, you gotta have 3 touchdowns, and you're still short of the 80% with 3 out of 4. You know what I mean? But then it's why were there not more red zone trips? Why? I mean, Miami dominated that game. There's no a 6-point margin of victory is not at all indicative of how that game went. That should have been a 3-4 touchdown blowout win, to be perfectly honest. You know what I mean? And then you start to slow down a little bit, and things, and guys, not coming through when they need to, and the offense just not curling over. The defense was, dominant, but even they, weren't able to pitch a shutout there. Even they, had a couple breakdowns and, short fields and things like that. I mean, yeah, you're looking at the total yards there, plus 200, and you only win by, and Virginia Tech only had 258, and you only win by 6, by 2 field goals, by a touchdown minus the extra point. And I said it during the game, and I believe it. Look, a win is a win, and a win is good because that is a step forward, and we haven't won in a while. But that was a very lost feeling win. That was very Nebraska, Miami 2015, where that game went into overtime with Tommy Armstrong at quarterback, and it had no business going there. That was snatching defeat from the hands of victory, and then by the grace of God and a hair that was split in the vertical way 10 times, that thin margin, you walk out of there with the victory. There is no reason this game should have been close at all, right? So, what can the coaching staff do? That's a tough question, because you're starting to see the coaching staff do things to empower the players to play the way that works for them, particularly Tyler Van Dyke, another huge performance for him, right? So you're running the things that he likes and is good at and everything, but we're seeing the run game slip back to 2019 levels, 2020 levels, non-existent and everything. So, I mean, I think it's really just empowering the players. You got to keep coaching them up. You got to keep motivating them. And again, you have to just eliminate the stupid mistakes. And in this case, from this game, actually what I will say is the penalties. 17 for
159.
17 for 159. Buddy.
Well, that buys back about 100 out of the 200 in advantage. That buys back about 100 yards right there, because I think Virginia Tech had about 100 less than that.
Yeah, they were 6 for 56. But, I mean, we asked Cristobal on Monday, hey, all about these penalties. What are y'all going to do? So they're going to be addressed directly and harshly. And I hope so. Miami was one of the least penalized teams coming in. And even though in the good, the bad, the ugly, I was still putting it in bad or ugly because I don't like 6. I don't like 3. Even though objectively 3 penalties in the game is good. But look, I'm looking for perfection. So, okay, I put that in the bad, whatever. But then, you get 3 games worth of penalties in one game, and you're just gifting them yards on top of yards on top of yards when they're not getting any themselves. You know what I mean? Actually, and this is why I leave the stats up. Let me go to, let me see, 6 defensive penalties for 80 yards. That means there were 11 offensive penalties. Holding, false start, holding, false start, substitution infraction. And then this is actually not even including a defensive holding that was declined because they actually gained the yardage, and an unsportsmanlike that was offsetting. So there were 8 penalized plays on defense. Well, the offsetting was on a kickoff. So fine, there were 7 penalties on defense. But the 7th one, they said, y'all can keep it because y'all can even keep that one, which would have then been 18 for 171. But they got more than the 15. So what? All of that to say is from this game, all them penalties, gassers, down ups, bear crawls, barrel rolls. I mean, that needs to be a punitive kind of a thing. Yeah, extra conditioning. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Step off to the side because you're going to puke. All right. Cool. All right. And then have one of them, analysts or grad assistants or whatever. All right, buddy. I mean, go ahead. Get some water and everything. But you got 30 seconds back on the line. Like, I mean, that has to be what it is. It has to be very, very, very harsh because that was really poor.
We've all heard coaches say that they don't necessarily want to lead the nation in least number of penalties because maybe that's not a great indicator, but they certainly want to be in that range because maybe you're not being aggressive enough. It is a very aggressive sport if you are not committing any penalties. So, for example, you don't want your defensive backs called for 6 pass interferences in a game. But maybe if they get none and they give up 380 yards passing, maybe you're thinking, oh, well, maybe we're not playing that physical the entire game if we got no pass interference calls and we gave up 380 through the air.
Right.
But it's the focus, the concentration penalties, illegal procedure, all those false starts, lining up wrong, covering up the wide receiver, doing those sorts of things that are about focus and discipline and concentration.
I'll put it to you like this because I looked it up. Let me see. So that would be. Miami came in averaging 5.4 penalties per game and had 27 total penalties called against them. Miami more than tripled that with 17 and now have 44 penalties. That ends up being 39% of the penalties that have been called against Miami this year. That's almost 40%. So we're going to call it 40. So that's 2 out of every 5 penalties that have been called against Miami were called on Saturday. Come on, bro. Come on. You got to be better. You have to be better. And I know that you're playing young guys. We're going to talk about that and all kinds of stuff. Come hell or high water, it has to be better than that.
So I'm going to hit on another negative note, then I'm going to go positive. So it is a win, and it's a conference win. However, if we just do direct comparisons, I'm not a big believer in the transitive property when it's once, but if you can make a collection of comparisons, then I think they start to become meaningful. Virginia Tech's 3 previous games against Power 5 opponents, they lose to West Virginia by 23, they lose to North Carolina by 31, they lose to Pitt by 16.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, that just speaks to the fact that Miami didn't finish the game. They didn't finish drives. You didn't really turn the ball over much, but Miami didn't follow through because it was on 20-0. It was on the path towards being the worst loss for Virginia Tech this season. If you're talking about 31, look, if you turn one of those field goals into touchdown, then you're at 24 right there. You have other drives, right? You get another touchdown, bang, like that, you're at 31-0. Like again, those are the small margins that we're talking about. So yeah, it should have been worse than that. And as I'm looking at other numbers from other places, Miami won by 6, but with the adjusted scoring margin, it should have been 19 based upon looking at the statistics and everything from that game. The way that game played out, that was a 19-point victory. What does that translate to? Or 18.7, whatever. What does that translate to? A 3-touchdown victory. That's what we saw. That's what we saw. It easy. Hey, let's get Jake Garcia some snaps, maybe. That's what that game on the scoreboard should have been. But for whatever reason, it wasn't, right? But again, I think that speaks to the fact that Miami did not finish, and especially in that fourth quarter, because, Virginia Tech, and let me look again so that I'm not crazy, but if I'm looking at the drives, okay, no, they did not get the ball back after they cut it to 2014.
Yeah, that's what
Sorry, they did not. But that was a high leverage drive for Miami because you need those 2 first downs as it sat so that you can get out of there with the win. And to get the final first down of the game on a zone read with a Y lead block from your slot tight end on a called Tyler Van Dyke run. What? That was shades of, what game was that? Florida at Miami in the Orange Bowl in 2003. And that was a Devin Hester opening kickoff game. And I was in the student section, and I was way up. I think I was four rows from the top of the Orange Bowl on the bottom level. So, and you're looking, and the whole upper deck is just, doing a wave. And I'm way back there. And, y'all been listening to me. No, I did not play football. I know people always want to come at me about that. Whatever. I know ball. Shut up. Y'all are listening. And, will I be wrong sometimes? Yes. But y'all always go, okay. Yeah, because I know what I'm talking about. And there was a 4th down, I want to say. Miami had the ball late in that game. And we were like, oh, we should run this. We should run that. We should run this. We should run that. And I remember standing there. I was next to my boy Mike Fay. Shout out to Mike Fay. I said, look, you can run that. But if you got a pair of stones, you run a naked boot, like a play fake to the left, naked boot to the right, and hope that they're slanting this way, and then you walk for that first down. They called it, ran for it, won the game. And was like, try to tell you. So when I saw Tyler do that, it harkened back to that kind of call. I'm like, yo, that was wow. Tyler can throw it, and he's more athletic than you. Because people think that he's just going to stand back there like Dan Marino and not move at all. He's not that kid, but woo, they called the number 9 on that play. But they got it, and we won.
Cam Underwood's here every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Appreciate you all being here. Please bring some folks with you. Just don't enjoy the content yourself. Come on back next Wednesday, and of course, bring some others with you. And it's not too late with another 35 minutes left in the show to bring some folks with you. Let them know on social media that we are here right now. Cam, there was a guy that you were touting last week as we were sitting here saying, I like what I see. Get him the ball. His name's Colbie Young, and he went off for 9 for 110 and a touchdown.
Hey, look, again, like I just said, I be knowing. And yeah, it took a while for Colbie to integrate himself to this program. He's a JUCO transfer from Lackawanna College in Pennsylvania. That's the same college, JUCO, from which Bryant McKinney came to Miami. 6'5", 220, outside wide receiver. And yeah, he had those big catches against North Carolina in the loss. I'm saying, look, that's a guy who he has to be at the top of the rotation, from here on out. And he just proved it. You know what I mean? And yeah, he did a great job. Look forward to continuing to see him grow. Everybody was talking about, well, why did it take, so long? And, on the media availability, asked and everything, him the other day. And he was like, it took a while when I came to Miami because it's a different kind of offense. And I'm just getting used to the difference in speed because it's definitely faster than it is at JUCO. And it took him a minute to get his sea legs. You know what I mean? It took him a little bit to get settled to be able to play to the level of his talent. And okay, it took a couple, 4 games, and he played in a couple other games, but really 4 games before he came in Game 5 against North Carolina and really had an impact. But sometimes it takes just a little bit of acclimation time before that player can then start to do his thing. And we're seeing that. And yeah, I think that he's going to be a very good weapon in the passing game. I think that Miami needs to continue to move him around. His touchdown, the one-handed catch up the seam. I saw, ironically, Sean Glennon, who we talked about in the last week's show, former North Carolina State quarterback, but he broke down that play. And, you saw before in North Carolina, and even in this game, Miami put Colbie Young in either the X or the Z, so the outside receiver position. So one of the, furthest from the ball on either side. That one-handed, the touchdown he had last week on a fade, or 2 weeks ago on a fade, that was from the X up the left sideline. The one that he had against Virginia Tech was up the seam. So they moved him around to the number 2 receiver position. And then, ends up being a one-on-one with a linebacker trying to play that cover 2 and carry him up the seam. Throw that ball all day, every day. But they're going to need to continue to do stuff like that. I don't think that even with his size and his ability and performance so far, that Colbie Young is a X receiver, set it and forget it, right? Not Michael Irvin, Andre Johnson, Almon Richards, who you put him over there, and that's it. We don't got to talk about anything else. He's on that side, boom. I think that by moving him around and using his skill set in different places, because, Will Mallory got injured in this game. Julius Skinner had more catches, or had, more of an impact in the game because he was playing the tight end position because Will Mallory was out. You really would see Mallory or Skinner in that position run that route. That was the touchdown to Colbie Young. And I think that's a really good wrinkle from the coaching staff. And I think that that's something that can be helpful for him, because I think that he's a guy. I don't think that he's that guy yet. But by moving him around and getting him into those matchups, he can still be him. And then him at the number 2 against a safety or a linebacker, mismatch all day. Now you want to put him back outside. Look, we can throw the stop. We can throw the hitch. We can throw all the, the out to the far sideline and everything to him. And he can make those plays. But moving him around a little bit, I think will still continue to support him and his growth, and also unlock other parts of his game. And you already saw in last 2 weeks him playing 2 different positions and making 2 really spectacular touchdown catches. And I'm just really excited that he's on the team. And I want to see where he goes moving forward. But it's not just him. There's plenty of other youngsters who are impacting the game in a positive way as well.
904 Hurricane, appreciate you being here. Mark, can I get you to give an analysis only you can deliver? Take Clemson out of the equation and compare the Atlantic to the Coastal and the ACC from the past 10 years, clarifying path next year. Well, 904 Hurricane, I do appreciate that you like my analysis on such things. That's kind of in my lane, things that I like to do, but that's more of an off-season kind of project right there. Let's get through the season and talk ball and talk previews and all of that, and we'll size up the Coastal and the Atlantic as we obviously segue into a new era of ACC scheduling and format, but I appreciate it. This team was pretty nicked up going into the Virginia Tech game. I believe 5 starters missing. Do we have any thoughts of who may be ready to return? And I know we don't get much out of the coaches, but what's the thought?
I think that, and I got to go back because I tweeted it. Hold on. So Cristobal on Monday did say a couple things about some guys. Basically, I know Zion Nelson, they're taking it slow. So I don't foresee him playing this year. Or if it did, it would probably be not till Florida State in 3 weeks in November. I think it's really, going to be something like that. Don Chaney is still 4 weeks away, but he was 4 weeks away 4 weeks ago. So we'll see if he doesn't redshirt. Xavier Restrepo is out of the walking boot. I did see that from the press box 2 weeks ago. He's about 2.5 weeks from maybe returning. So maybe looking at a Florida State kind of game. Jacoby George should be in the rotation or able to return this week. If he makes it onto the field, we'll see. Those are those three from the or four from that tweet. Mallory, Stevenson, and a couple other guys, quote unquote, look good per Cristobal on Monday, so they should maybe be back. But the other one was Justice Oluwaseun, who was the starting right guard. His injury is, quote, significant from Cristobal, so it seems that not in the way that I would have wanted, because I'd never want to see anybody get injured. But I think that we're going to see a different right guard for the rest of the season, for the fact that Justice Oluwaseun seems to be out. So I mean, obviously, whatever his injury is, we want him to be healthy and everything. And yes, I was critical of his performance on the field, but I never want anybody to get injured or anything like that. But yeah, so I mean, that does open the door for other guys to find their way in there, and I think that that's where we're looking really in terms of the injury situation. So with previously known guys who are out for the year, like Elijah Arroyo and Trevante Citizen and things like that, they're still out for the year.
Where do you stand at this point? And I know a lot of this has been effective, especially early in the season, by injury. But in regards to the way they're using the three main running backs, using them in certain roles, but also the distribution of the carries and when they're on the field, how much they're on the field.
I think that frankly needs to be used in the red zone more. 6 feet, 245. Like, you got a big battering ram running back for a reason, right? You recruited him for a reason. So I think you should use him in that way. Jalen Knighton needs to stop fumbling the ball, to be perfectly honest. So that's kind of his major hang up. But I mean, it was everybody, the whole run game struggled, these past few weeks, to the point of the question on the screen from Mr. HD. And then Henry Parrish has been injured, and kind of rotating in and out with some, injuries. So, but yeah, so Henry Parrish was actually out last week. So Jalen Knighton got the lion's share of the carries. But they're crashing to the run and stopping that. Lucius Stanley, the preferred walk-on who used to be at UAB, got in there and looked good. So I think that's fine, but I'm not going to base. 4 to 5 carries for Lucius Stanley, I'll take that. But I mean, even though he did look good, I'm not comfortable with giving him 12 to 20 carries. I'm just not. So that means these other guys got to step up. That means the running game as a whole needs to step up. And, whether that's blocking, whether that's the running backs following the design of the play, which has been talked about in a negative way by Cristobal several times, like, we have this block this way on unsuccessful play. It was there if they went where they were supposed to go, but they didn't, trying to be a hero. And sometimes 4 yards is all you're going to get. It's not going to be, okay, we're going to go back, cut backside, bounce outside, touchdown. Every play is not going to be a touchdown. And that's why teams work on inside run during practice, right? Because you got to find your way in there. Sometimes it's going to be 4. It's going to be, but then, hey, if you slip a tackle on that inside run for 4, it becomes 7. That's nice. But like, you can't just go where you want to go sometimes. I think that's been a problem with the run game. But, I think that honestly, it is a little misleading, because I would say probably of Brashard Smith's 6 catches, 3 of those were on bubbles. I'm counting those as run plays, extensions of the run game. Just like, we're not able to run the ball out there, but we can run a bubble, get it to a guy who was playing a slash position before Xavier Restrepo got hurt, right? So you saw Brashard Smith outside in the slot, returning in the backfield. Like, you saw him doing all these different things, but now Xavier Restrepo's out. He's like, no, he's playing slot only, right? So, sorry. Let's throw him the ball out there and let him work like a running back, use his abilities. And those are ostensibly extensions of the run game. But we need to be able to actually run the run game. And I don't know. They just got to work. And I think, and by they, I mean everybody. Josh Gaddis has to figure out the plays to call, because even though there's some plays there and there's some holes there, if you're not getting the running back at that point, then you got to figure something out, right? So I'm not saying that the play calling is poor, but it's not matching up. The offensive line has had several injuries. You're still down starters. but these new guys are the starters now, right? So you got to find a way to get those 5 to coalesce and get them to work together to, you know, be on the progressive side of things, move at the line of scrimmage, into the defensive, alignment and things like that. So it's going to take a lot, but, I think that having everybody healthy will be helpful, but, even with that, the performance still just needs to step up.
Kim gives us at least an hour of his time each and every week, and beyond just the time commitment, which is obviously an important thing, is for me, he's a master at his craft. The insight, the analysis, the storytelling, the knowledge, and the knowledge that extends on the recruiting path as well. So please consider the super chat and contribution in that manner. We're 6 games down and we got 6 to go. About some mid-season report card grades here.
All right.
On the offensive line.
D.
D.
You played D like dog. Yeah. No, and look, my students knew when I taught, I'm a hard grader, but fair. I will say that. But yeah, so you run the ball well against Bethune. Cool. That Southern Miss game took 6 hours. My God. The game time of that game was 6 hours and 18 minutes. That's crazy. What? Anyways, I think that might be a typo. Anyways, but yeah, you go through there, but you kind of.
What game is this?
Southern Miss. It says the game time was 6 hours, 18 minutes. I don't remember it being that long, but whatever. But that was okay. You have some injuries and things like that, but you played probably your best game in the loss at Texas A&M. Atrocious against Middle Tennessee, bad against North Carolina, and probably average at absolute best, probably leaning a little bit bad in the Virginia Tech game. Now, I know that they're doing well or better in pass protection and things like that. I know that they are rotating guys in, but it's clearly not where it needs to be. I think that your offensive line MVPs are probably going to be John Campbell and Jalen Rivers, the left side of the line. But, I was critical about Justice Oluwase's play. And I think that that's with a specific reason because it wasn't that good. Ja'Kai Clark was average, but then he gets hurt. Jonathan Dennis coming in as a backup center, I think has been a clear step back from Ja'Kai Clark. So you're talking about below average. DJ Scaife at right tackle, he's been below average. He's miscast as a tackle. He needs to be a guard for sure. And then, he had a bunch of false starts. Now, if you want to talk about the false starts being Scaife's fault against Virginia Tech for not getting it right, or Jonathan Dennis, the new center, for not being on the same snap count that Ja'Kai Clark was on and being fraction late, and that caused somebody else to false start. Either way, performance has not been good. So for me, this so far this year, the offensive line, D, like dog.
Wasn't the Southern Miss game delayed? Wasn't there a delay to that game? Not for 3 hours, but
there was. It was it was before the game started. Really? It was like 30 minutes or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe they're counting when it should have kicked off.
But still, it shouldn't.
It still wasn't that long. No.
Right. Yeah. It still wasn't that long.
I remember the end of that game. It wasn't 6 o'clock.
Right.
In the afternoon.
Right.
Running back room.
Running back, yeah, disappointed, honestly. C- probably. And that has a lot to do with injuries. And then also the failings of the offensive line because since game 3, Charles Johnson's correct. The run game has been non-existent. But yeah, I mean, it starts with Trevante Citizen's season-ending injury before the season. I was really expecting him to be a foundational guy in this run game. He's so talented that, I mean, there was a chance that he could have started throughout the course of this year, but Jalen Knighton has not been great. He's fumbled way too much, and he's not really done things enough with the chances he's gotten. Henry Parrish has been pretty good. Henry Parrish is probably the MVP so far. Thad Franklin's played well, but we're not even using him the right way in the red zone and things like that because Yeah, I mean, if you want to play 3 yards in a cloud of dust, you got two dudes who are under 200 pounds, or you got a 245 pounder. Which one would you put in there? You know what I mean? So yeah, for all of those reasons, I'm like CC minus, not really great at all.
Tyler Van Dyke's kind of a great unto himself as the quarterback, with Jake Garcia just playing a little mop up. So
Yeah.
quarterback.
It's almost like he's had 2 seasons so far, because what we were running is not like what we were running for the first 4 games is not what we're running in the last 2 games from a passing standpoint, from a schematic standpoint, even. But he did end up hitting some throws against Middle Tennessee, just because we said, hey, we're down by 3 scores. We got to start chucking it. So even if you want to say, okay, the last 3 games, just the first 3 games. Yeah, but I mean, he's been a little off on his accuracy early, but I think that's definitely clearing up now that we're running things that he's more comfortable with, because you can see he's kind of mismatched with the offense for the first 3 games. But yeah, he's playing really well the last 3. I know that the numbers are slightly inflated from Middle Tennessee just because we got down so much that was just hey, you got to throw the ball. But yeah, the last 2 weeks, I think we're seeing who Tyler Van Dyke actually is. Demetrius Abrams, what's up, bro? Good to see you. And I think that this is a performance that doesn't put him back in the first round of the draft, but it's like, oh, okay, like we weren't crazy for saying or for expecting to see this dude at quarterback again this year. So I would say the first quarter of the year, the first 3 games, I would give Tyler probably like a C minus D plus. For the last 3 games, inclusive of, Middle Tennessee, probably a BB plus. Not perfect, but a damn sight better and much more like the player that we know him to be. And very excited if he can continue that kind of play throughout the rest of the year. I think that Miami can be successful. And let us not forget that I do not believe that quarterback wins are a stat. Now, sure, he threw a ball at the end of the North Carolina game that got intercepted. And that was the last play, offensive play of the game, and things like that. It was not solely on him that happened that way, right? So, yeah, would you like to see a better play or something from, then the grade would have changed. But I don't think the quarterback wins are a stat. I think it's a holistic team stat because we win and we lose together, right? But yeah, so, hey.
I'm a big believer in that. I get sick of seeing the quarterback stat. You know what? I don't necessarily get sick of seeing quarterback statistics, and you see it more on the NFL level than you do during college games, where you'll see Tom Brady's record is this in his career. You see this for no other player, though, no other position player. So if you're going to do it, I would like to see, like at one point in his career, well, after his career, and it still exists, I believe, to this day, Pete Rose has played in more winning baseball games than anybody in history. So, yeah, he played obviously some great baseball for a long, long time and on some great teams.
Yeah.
But tons of guys contributed. I would love to see that statistic for everyone, just like any other statistic. What's Braxton Berrios's record in games? I would like, not that they should be evaluated on that, but everybody contributes to the win or the loss. And then we can make our judgment as to whether this is a really, really good player playing on a bad team or vice versa.
Yeah.
So let's make our way to the
receivers.
The offense, correct? No, we got the receivers. Yes.
Yeah. So receivers, including tight end. C. You know, like there were so many just times we're talking about drop balls coming back. We're talking about, like looking for guys to make plays, even guys who have started to make plays like a Frank Ladson. Colbie Young got his shot this year because Frank Ladson didn't play to his 6'4" height, right? Because we threw him a jump ball. He's playing small. I made that Scott Mitchell analogy of somebody with a frame and not using it to that great effect. And he wasn't able to go up there and go get that thing. So he said, hey, Colbie, go do that. And then he went and did that, right? So that even opened the door for somebody to come in. And then you're obviously talking about injuries because Will Mallory's out, Xavier Streppo's out, Elijah Arroyo's out, and things like that. So you've seen a lot of injuries contribute to the inconsistency at the position. So, leaves a lot to be desired. And I know that part of that also was there were some throws that Tyler wasn't as accurate on early as you would have liked. I know I'm not saying that, like the right hand washes the left hand, guys, but that doesn't inform that. So yeah, definitely substandard from what I'm expecting, with a couple bright spots, but still, like about a C.
Cam, what do you think of the comment there from Mike Williams?
That Tyler Van Dyke needs to be the last pro style QB recruit Miami ever takes. No. I think that Miami needs to take the best players possible. I think that, Jake Garcia is a pro style quarterback, and he's the highest rated quarterback that Miami signed since Kyle Wright in 01. And is the heir apparent to taking over this offense if Tyler Van Dyke leaves at the end of this year for next year. And Jake Garcia can play. I know that people want to try to split hairs and everything and say, Cam, you're wrong. First of all, bullshit, because I saw it. Jake Garcia was the number 2 quarterback last year before Derrick King got injured. He entered the first game of the year where you go down the line and say, okay, number 2, number 3, the HBCU bye game where you're like, cool, whatever. Starters play for a little bit, and then you go down the depth chart. The first quarterback off the sideline with the helmet strapped on to go in the game was Jake Garcia before Tyler Van Dyke in the Central Connecticut State game. Now, he broke his ankle, and he didn't play after that. But at that time, he was in front of Tyler Van Dyke. That speaks to his level of ability, right? And to that point, demonstrated performance because Tyler Van Dyke hadn't done anything other than backup, mop-up duty before that. So, yeah, they were on even sledding. So that's a guy who I expect to come in and play to a high level and deliver. And I'm not going to sit here and say that we need to not have any pro-style guys. Both of the quarterbacks committed in the 2023 class, Jaden Rashada and Emory Williams, both of those guys are pro-style guys. Now, can they move? Sure. But again, there's a difference between Mike Vick, Lamar Jackson, and Aaron Rodgers. He's an athletic quarterback. He's not a sit back there statue, but you're not going to expect Aaron Rodgers to go 40 yards past you on the ground, right? But he can manipulate that pocket. He can move around and slide. He's more athletic than you give him credit for, but he's definitely a pocket quarterback or a pocket passer, pro style, whatever you want to call it, right? So no, I think that's way overblown. And I think that you need the best players, the most athletic players, and a guy like Ja'Cory Brown, who I didn't even get to, who played a really good game, had a couple of, they put him in there as the belldozer, the run option of Cam Newton, right? At Auburn. So he's not going to look to throw. We're not even going to put a pass tag on that play. No, you're going to come in here and run the ball, big fella. Fine. But if and when he develops as a passer, that is the whipped cream on top, not the foundation of the meal, right? Because you got to be able to throw that ball. But if it breaks down and, hey, look, I got room, I'm going to go. So that's a good skill set to have for sure. But I'm not going to take a guy with that skill set who's not as good a player as Jaden Rashada, who's not as good as a player as Emory Williams in this class right now. I personally disagree with that. But Mike Williams, if that's how you feel about it, then we can freely disagree. And I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to call you names or anything like that. I just do not at all share that mentality or mindset.
And Cam, since you know the recruiting game and the analysis and how these recruiting operations work, obviously not every quarterback is to the end of the spectrum, Michael Vick or Drew Bledsoe. So who makes that determination? Who's a dual threat quarterback and who's a pro style quarterback? Because most of them have various levels of mobility.
The beautiful thing about it is, like 3 years ago, the recruiting industry kind of came together and they got rid of those monikers. So it's one quarterback list
Oh, is
now.
it? Okay.
Yeah, which is great because you can take
Sure.
the athleticism into account.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Perfect.
Like it
Yeah.
is a part of the skill set of that player, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But like, yeah, no, I mean, so yeah, it used to be the pro style passer list, and then but then
Yeah.
like you also get mismatches where, shout out to Miramar High School class of 2008, 9, I want to say, graduate Eugene Geno Smith, right? But he's 6'3" black kid from South Florida. So everybody's like, oh, he's a mobile, dual threat quarterback. Geno Smith, they know Geno Smith, buddy. If you think that, then you're. But in a vacuum, if you see, okay, he's 6'3", 184 pounds, playing quarterback in South Florida. That's an athlete. That's a kid who would otherwise be at receiver. That's an Anquan Bolden. That's whatever. That's a guy. He's not a quarterback. He's not a whatever. He has to be an athlete. So we're going to put him over in there. Geno Smith ain't been a dual threat quarterback a day in his life. And that's not a shot at Geno Smith because he's a very good passing quarterback. Set records at Miramar, set records at West Virginia. I mean, at the top of the list of the QBR in the NFL this year, current year and everything. Now, it took some while to develop, but like that's never a guy that you would think I'm going to run the same offense that I would run Lamar Jackson in. But on paper or on the internet years ago, before the industry kind of caught up, that's what people thought he was on. And I'm like, no, this is a kid who, nope, they would keep it an extra running back, and we just, when I worked at Miramar. Speaking of, I had my first Miramar High School ID sitting right here. It's funny. But they keep an extra running back in, and then it was like, cool. So we got Terrence Gordine, Ivan McCartney, Stedman Bailey, and Dante Chambers, all 4 guys who played college football at receiver. We had 5 offensive linemen and 1 running back. All them dudes can block so that Geno has time to find one of them dudes. And did. So I know that was a long detour there, but yeah, no, it's really more about the player as a whole now, as opposed to putting him in some kind of box of pocket passer versus dual threat. But yeah, I think that finding the best players possible is the better thing for me.
I've also heard some so-called analysts, and they're typically not college football guys. They are like sports guys that do some analysis here on the side. We can fill in the
Debate
blank
who,
on,
right? Yeah,
your debate shows where they have to be an NBA expert for one segment, then they're a college football expert and then they're boxing. And so therefore they don't know that much about anything, or maybe have their area of expertise, I should say. And I think because of that, there's been a few times where there have been some assumptions made by about the mobility of quarterbacks based on the color of their skin.
Oh, facts. Oh, big facts. Big facts.
It's been like, yes, Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace.
Yeah.
About as immobile as you would find. And I've heard a few people, analysts, talk about his great mobility, and I was like,
but again, like I say, you can even talk about that, even to when he was in college and coming out to the NFL and everything. Yeah, rest in peace to his immortal soul. But like, come on, bro, like that's not who he is. It's just the color of his skin. But I mean, hey, that's a conversation for another day.
Yes, it is. Defensive line,
A+. I mean, that is the MVP position of the year so far. Akeem Mesidor is probably the best player on the team. And he's playing like it. Everybody, I mean, even the rotation guys, even guys who like you didn't really even think. Yeah, exactly, Charles Johnson. But even guys that you didn't think that were going to be impact players or really played meaningful snaps, a la your Jordan Millers of the world and everything, stepping up and playing big rotation snaps and playing well. Now I need some other guys to step up more. I need Chance Williams to take that next step. I need Jafari Harvey to be a little bit more impactful in the mold of a Josh Mesidor. Oh, sorry, not Josh, Akeem Mesidor. I need a little bit more diversity to my excellence on defensive line, but that is the bellwether position on the team. A+.
Akeem Mesidor, 3.5 sacks against Virginia Tech.
your ACC Defensive Lineman of the Week, and Walter Camp Defensive Player National of the Week, Akeem Mesidor.
Sore spot in previous seasons, linebacker.
C+, not where it needs to be, but ticking in the positive direction, especially recently. And I think that has a big thing to do with Wesley Besainth in the same kind of developmental way of Colbie Young finally getting his legs under him, getting settled, and really starting to just play football. And, you can start as you're going into something new. It's a lot of thinking. It's less reactive, but to be good at football, you got to just kind of read it and go. So, Corey Flagg, I think he's playing really well in most of the things I ask him to do. I still don't love him in space. And that touchdown against Middle Tennessee, the first one where they threw a 6-yard curl and then the guy ran forever because, Flagg wasn't really able to make a play in space. That still is a factor. But even with giving up things in the passing game, he's still doing, maybe better than I thought he was going to. And I need to be honest about that. So I'm trying to be as loud with the credit as I was with the criticism. I still think that there's holes to his game, i.e. he's not fast. He's not really athletic in that kind of a way. And he's not going to be because he is who he is. But he gets the defense aligned really well. He plays downhill. He's very good in the run game and things like that. So, yeah, he's playing to a good level. I still would like to see more Gilbert Frierson in general, but that's just kind of a ship that's pretty sailed, I think, at this point to the season. I don't know necessarily why he's fallen down the list so much, but they're playing, I think, an extra defensive back as opposed to that striker, that hybrid safety outside backer position, which is a position that he has locked down. So if you're going to allocate that to a DB or James Williams coming down from safety, and playing that near the box, in the box position, if you want to play him instead of Gilbert Frierson, I get it, so there's a little bit of that. But, I think that there still needs to be development at linebacker. Last week's game against Virginia Tech was the best game at linebacker that I've seen from Miami in a long time. And a lot of people have said that, even Kevin Steele. So that's positive, but I mean, that's maybe even generous to give it a C+. So maybe I'll take that down to a C or so. But yeah, at least you can start to see things going in the direction that they need to at linebacker. So hopefully that continues.
DBs, you can take that on any way you'd like. Split the corner safeties.
Yeah, this is the biggest disappointment for me, honestly. The continual path towards DJ Ivey being the person that the staff always tells us that he is. That is going to be Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain. I mean, just every year, and again, he looks the part and everything, but they're still just taking advantage of him in the passing game. Now, he's played lots better recently. But still, when you take, into account the other games when, he's getting bombed, that's not great. Tyreek Stevenson, I think, has taken a step back this year. But I think that he needs to be quickly on the path from cornerback to safety. I think that he's Antrell Roll in that way, where Antrell Roll was super athletic and big, but he was able to last in the league for a while and then transition to safety. I think that Tyreek Stevenson is going to be quicker on that transition from corner to safety with the same body type and play style and everything, but the foot speed is an issue there, right? So yeah, I think that he's a little bit miscast. I think that if he were at Georgia, they would have moved him in. They were playing him mostly inside. And I don't say it's safety, but he was playing nickel a lot, and everything like that. So I think that he played nickel going towards safety. I think that would be the best use of his skill set. Corey Couch struggled early, and he's getting his stuff together. Daryl Porter Jr. Was just behind Stevenson, so he hasn't had too much, but he's starting to come on a little bit. But yeah, to the previous point, the Middle Tennessee State game on its own gets a D from the defensive backfield for this first half of the season. The safeties have been disappointing. James Williams, I know that he name searches on Twitter because I've seen it from conversations with people that I've been having, or I've had the conversation in person, and I've seen the person tweet about it using his name, especially when he was a recruit. And then he name searches and he quote tweets, "Nah, I'm a safety coach. I'm a safety. I'm not going to grow no outside linebacker." Buddy, you're an outside linebacker. Or in the box safety. If you want to say, fine, he can be a Cam Chancellor safety where he plays center field sometimes and does it well, but like also moving into the box. And we're seeing him do that more and be effective at it. Now he needs to learn how to wrap up and use that big frame in a physical kind of way. But I think that is, splitting his time between being a deep safety and in the box. I think that that's the better usage for his skill set. And you're starting to see that happen. I think that's going to trend more towards the linebacker position as he continues to age and grow. Cam Kinchins has been the best at safety, but even he has blown coverages 4 touchdowns this year multiple times. And so that's disheartening because, you're giving up multiple touchdowns in the same way multiple times. I mean, if you're playing cover 2, you need to be deep half. But, I think this is this. And then they dress up the playbook to trick the safety. That's what they want. They want you not to do your job and to gamble. And every time he's gambled, it's come up snake eyes, and the other team has queued up the band and changed the scoreboard. So I don't like that. But he's still making lots of tackles. He's still covering lots of ground. He has made interceptions and things. So when he does his job, he does it well. Those kind of few times where he's like, I'm going to gamble and see if I got this right. If I watch enough film where I know the wrinkle that they're throwing at me. And each time he's done that, he is not. So that needs to tighten up. Avante Williams finally getting on the field more is good. Avante Williams was the one last week who blew that coverage a la Cam Kinchins that should have been a touchdown, but luckily Virginia Tech is terrible, and he dropped that ball when he was 3 steps behind. So I see why maybe a little bit, but and then the other guys at that position, Brian Balaam, who was my study hall student at Miramar my last year teaching there, some other guys as well in the safety room. They're not necessarily getting many snaps because you're going to play the better guys in the front end. Like, I get it. But even with playing those better guys, when you have those critical failure moments, that's really a negative impact on the grade. So, I would say, I would agree, for the defensive backfield, probably a D minus for the first half of the year. I mean, it's been pretty bad. And then also, you let Texas A&M throw for yardage and touchdowns. That's bad. So,
Robert, we appreciate the Super Chat contribution. Thank you so much for that. How bad do you think our record is going to hurt this upcoming recruiting class? Helps that the Gators and Florida State are struggling too.
I think it's going to have a definite impact on some guys that Miami is after. I think that guys like Brandon Innes and Mark Fletcher from American Heritage, that ship sailed. You lose to A&M, but it's close and it looks halfway decent. You can talk your way into that and say, hey, guys, Innes, if we had you, we're throwing the ball better. Fletcher, if we had you, we're running the ball better. You can sell that Texas A&M loss on the trail. There's no conversation after losing to Middle Tennessee. Text messages left on red, phone goes straight to voicemail. You know what I mean? That's done. So I think that there's going to be an impact from that in that way. I don't think that it's killer. I don't think that it's terminal to the class. I do think that the group that is committed currently, for the most part, are fully bought in, which is great. I think that Miami is still pursuing some other guys that, whether they're committed elsewhere or not, they can get. But it's not going to be everybody, and it's not going to be at the top of the super duper top of the list. I think that those battles, unfortunately, have been decided and not in Miami's favor. Speaking of which, Cormani McClain, the number 1 cornerback in the country, the number 1 player in Florida, the number 3 player overall in this class, is committing somewhere next week, Thursday, I believe it is. Finalists are Alabama, Florida, and Miami. That's one where if you had hope, you needed things to go differently so far this year. And I never really had hope. I had some hope when he was at Lake Gibson. I literally tweeted it. He transferred to Lakeland Senior High, the Dreadnoughts, orange and black, or black and orange. So that's a wrap. I mean, that's the Marquise, the Pouncey twins, Jeff Rainey, all them other dudes from there. They go to Florida. And if they don't go to Florida, then you had like, what's his name? The running back. Sheesh, I forget his name. I can see it. But the running back went to Clemson, but he was like, never mind, I'm going transferring to Florida. Now you might get, an Alabama in there where it's like, look, I'm going to Bama because Bama is Bama, right? But yeah, I think that one, I think that Miami being a finalist for Cormani McClain is a gold star for the staff to even get that far. But yeah, I think that, to your point, the previous results would have needed to be different to really close on him. And that's what I mean for the top of the list. Now, conversely, if we get Damani Brown, Selwyn Brown's son, Selwyn Brown, who I worked with for 11 years at Miramar, who played at Miami, won 2 championships on teams with Cristobal, things like that. If you get Damani, a 4-star from American Heritage, that's a guy who's not committed anywhere, where I think that Miami can and should close the deal. You get a blue chip guy that it's not a one-to-one replacement, because you're not going to necessarily replace the number 1 cornerback in the country, because like you're not getting the number 1 cornerback in the country. But by getting the Brown kid, then that is the kind of recruiting replacement that works, because you're getting a blue chipper, boom, 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 you can go through, right? So I think that one position and those 2 guys, I think that's kind of instructive of where we are at the moment, where the tip top of the list, probably not, if they're not already in the boat. You know what I mean? Like a Francis Malgoa, I don't think he was going anywhere else now, but like, yeah, but like a Cormani McClain, no, but a Damani Brown, I think that's one where Miami can close. So I think you're going to see some of that. But also remember that all programs do see a bump in the first full class of a new coach. Mario Cristobal is widely known to be one of the best recruiting coaches in the country. We have a great recruiting staff. So I think that there can be, and probably will be, some surprises in a positive way as we move towards signing day. But yeah, I think that you cannot overstate the fact that you lost some games that you should have won. The Carolina game, should have won that. Middle Tennessee, I mean, that was a once in 70-year performance for them. So yeah, we get it. But you didn't. And there's going to be a price paid for that. But I think that this class is still going to be top 10 in the end. I think it's going to be more in the 6 to 9 range as opposed to the 2 to 4 range.
That running back's name was on the tip of my tongue too, so I cheated. DeMarcus Bowman.
It literally came to me as I was like taking a drink of my water. Like, oh man,
yeah, I was
22 Bowman, yeah.
Right there, but I couldn't come up with it. All right, I will remind everyone that if you want to talk Canes and college football all the time, you can do that on our Discord. Go to patreon.com, search MarkRogersTV, and these folks, I'm telling you, they just flat out endorse it, promote it, talk about how great it is all the time. They want to be there all the time, and they promote it better than I do. So if you talk to anybody who's in our Discord, they will vouch for it. So please join us there, and you get a bunch of other benefits that I don't have time to get into right now. Cam, what you got this week?
A bunch of good stuff. We have a profile on Colbie Young up on the website. We have a couple other things. Got another Fat Boy Eats installment, I believe, coming up this week. Eventually, I'm actually going to do what I said I'm going to do on this Wednesday show and write more about recruiting, because, I mean, I do love talking about it, and that was my foundation and entry into the world of blogging. So I got to do that. But, we got a couple other things that are up there for you to enjoy and discuss and interact with. Good, Bad, Ugly was up a little bit late this week because I did have it wasn't like a bad personal thing. Like, I just had a friend who came into town who I haven't seen in like a decade, and they hit me up and were just like, hey, Saturday morning. Boom. And I was like, I already do something else Saturday morning, but we'll fit that in. So that's why I was like, yeah, Tavio can, tweet it and, tweet the game, and I'll, whatever. So it took me a little bit till like Monday morning, but that's still up for you to go and read and interact with, and all of that and plenty more. So Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at The State of the U. The website, as you see on the screen, is thestateoftheu.com. Our personal Twitter account is at Underwood Sports, where we just finished 2-3 in the F1 manager game for the last race. And the one I was talking about last week, I was upset because my power flashed in my apartment because they were messing with the transformer around the corner. So when I went out after the show, it hadn't, and it's supposed to autosave, and it didn't autosave. So that immaculate performance that I engineered and lost to history. So I had to go back and redo that again. But I mean, with the dynamic nature of gaming, like obviously I didn't get the exact same result because I didn't get the exact same interactions in that race. So I was a little miffed because I really did it perfectly then, but I've already saved the last race that I did. So you can follow along there. Hit me up anytime. I'd love to talk to you guys. And if you like, I believe his name was Andre from 2 weeks ago, are at the game this week, I will be there. So if you see me or anything, come and talk. I'm like I'm a good guy. I'll share a drink with you. We can, catch up and whatever. So, would love to see you guys out and anything. So yeah, don't be scared. Come on up. And yes, if you see me, yes, I am Cam. My name is Cam. So come on over. Not Mike. I was going to make a joke because there was a thing where somebody on Twitter just said, "Hey, introduce yourself by the name that people mistakenly call you." And one time at church basketball camp, my youth pastor, who I'd known for years, called me Mike repeatedly and insistently. And I'm like, who is Mike, bro? Because that ain't me. But anyways, so whatever. Anyway, if you're out of the game and I see you, great. If not, stateoftheu.com is a place to meet and come on over and fan with us. And if not there, then we'll see you here next week, Wednesday.
Folks, I hope you really understand what we've got here each and every Wednesday night with Cam. So I'll leave it at that. We'll be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but bring some folks with you. Next week, we'll be here to wrap up Duke and look forward to the rest of the stretch dive for Miami. Cam, we appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the football this weekend.
Absolutely. You guys do the same. See you soon.